Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Artificial DM. So you have heard the tale of Big Boy Blue, and at the end of the video I mentioned how there were more stories about him. If you haven't seen the first video about Big Boy Blue, you should watch this video here. Honestly, it's probably one of the worst stories, or maybe even the best story, that I've read on the channel. A real RPG horror story. Now, I'm going to say something up front. This is an RPG horror story, mainly because it connects with the original RPG horror story. However, it doesn't really classify as an RPG horror story anymore. These are just going to be either cringe furry stories, or cringe that guy stories, or neckbeard stories, or some other nonsense. So if you're not interested, go ahead and click away. If you know anybody though who's really interested in neckbeards, go ahead and send them part 1 to the video and tell them to continue to watch to part 2. In fact, Big Boy Blue really reminds me of Chris Chan. And with the first video, the story was initially shared on TG in a That Guy thread. And so, it's pretty fitting that OP ended up returning to a new That Guy thread and decided to share more stories about Big Boy Blue. In fact, the irony here, this That Guy thread started with a capture of OP's first story about Big Boy Blue. Hey, quick warning, if you don't like stories where animals get hurt, or there is gross sexual activities brought up and mentioned, you're not going to like this video. So with all that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and dive into this story about Big Boy Blue, the tale of the plush fox. Keynote. All F-bombs, which are normally replaced with floops, shall instead be replaced with fox. Fox knew someone would image it, so I looked it up, and it also got archived. Treat yourself to my pain. Read the thread post after I left. Believe there are a few more stories about Big Boy Blue. Would you like the tale of the plush fox Fox Force, or the tale of attempted ungulated rape? Vulpes, noble creature, a fiery-haired sprite who flits about, feeding and showing its natural beauty. Great animals, but illegal to own without a permit. And not legal to fox anywhere in the continental United States. I set out to tell you a story of the time before my time with Big Boy Blue, learned from another one of my players. The master of perverts earned his nickname completely in jest, as he is to this day one of my favorite living beings on this planet.
You don't understand. My name is the master of perverts. I live for coochie.
Completely clean cut and full of that je ne sais quoi that people around the world call swag these days. Master of perverts knew everyone, due to his position as the purveyor of the academic hub of any SLAS, a beautiful tavern that became our lifeblood. Which, I should mention, SLAS stands for Small Liberal Arts School. The guy played a mean game. Any game. One of the smartest men I've known, just keeping kids and adults out of trouble by making sure you never jumped in that car drunk, or decided to head home with a disease-infested bicycle due to low self-esteem. And the man had porn. Sweet Lassou the porn.
I started my collection with my father's vintage porno. I love you, Dad, and all of those money shots.
He had colluded through a talent for writing and work for several magazines as an unseen author, and one of them happened to be one you have most likely spanked to, and they were generous with their goods. I will be telling his story, as he listed it, along with my own observations which came later. May God have mercy on our souls. There is always that moment in an artist's life when you find your calling. That time when Pollock found his drip technique, Homer found his Odyssey, Schicklgruber found he needed something more hardcore than delightful summer landscapes. And sometimes you just find that you possess a niche so deeply hidden in the recesses of the human mind that you should not practice it. Big Boy Blue found this niche as a young adult, but hid his light beneath a bushel until he heard about the master of perverts' side gig. A clean-cut, not yet pile of human waste with legs, Big Boy Blue had been in courses for 1 solid year. It is rumored he had friends then, upperclassmen who had sort of taken him under their wing, trying to get him to come out of his shell. They brought him to one of the old watering holes where they would smoke cigarettes and drink beers while he ate bar food, drank sodas, and stayed a good boy. At this point, he wasn't the walking pile of feces he would later become. Per all I spoke to after my own interactions, he was a good kid, foxed up about the loss of his Elizabeth, but not speaking about the deep hurt. I wonder whether what steps from this person brought him to the person I knew, or if that fox was hidden there in plain sight, only waiting for an alleged wrong to bring him forward. He kept a journal with his beloved fox on the front of it, and drew and wrote in it constantly in those days. He was soft-spoken, and his journal was his prized possession. Master of Perverts enjoyed his presence, seeing a kindred spirit yearning to get out, and attempted to chat to him and learn about his story, as he had done over his years as a barkeep for the thousands who passed through. And then one day, in spring, he was given a view of the material within. It begins. A moleskin notebook filled with perversion. He described the imagery as
some of the most horrific things I have ever seen.
You see, it told the tale of the Fox Force, a group of interstellar Charlie's Angels like furry fox women who were under the control of a cruel and brutal middle-aged human who sent them on various quests throughout the cosmos. The first episode filled half of one of these notebooks. The Force was sent to investigate a group of rhino men who had somehow gotten a rage on for battle and hardcore destruction. What entails hardcore destruction? Rape. Lots of rape. Rape of humans, rape of animals, rape of furry people, and even a scene where a tentacle monster with a baby's face that ran a Mojoverse-like world is forced to perform fellatio on the giant, veined members of this rhino army's leader. Oh, and they also murder their targets and rape their corpses. And the fine-furred ladies of the Fox Force find themselves drawn into a conflict. The scary thing?
It was well written. It was Frank Miller let loose on a world of raping rhinos. I wanted to put it down, but I just couldn't put the book down.
The tale continues. What came next was 25 pages of fervent lesbian gangbang erotica as the rhino men forced the Fox Force to perform for their amusement. Cunnilingus, analingus, forced milking, the lactation theme presents itself, strap-ons, water sports, and then there is this scene.
Imagine a picture of a giant throne room. Now 2 of the Furry Fox Force lay on the ground as 2 rhinos have another with chains tied around her legs, and she's forced to, they split her apart and make the others use her limbs to masturbate. I wanted it all to stop. I really did. There were baby foxes, and the rhinos stuck them on their pricks.
This is when the master took his drink and walked away for a few minutes. I learned this story a few years back, long after the events of my personal blue hell. But I had to know more, and there was so much foxing more. It was then that Big Boy Blue told him the merchandise opportunities. It was then the master was intrigued. You know that feeling you get as you browse a website that shows jock army rhino men with fetal foxes on their cocks dancing around the bodies of ravished fox women? Well, he knows that now. There's a reason why we drink friends. Some more than most. Blue had spent a chunk of change to have something created for him, but it wasn't the kind of thing that could be seen in a public bar. So he asked Master of Perverts if he wanted to come and see it. This was not to be in the cards. Master of Perverts wasn't one to go to the dormitories as a rule. Undergraduates who wanted to hook up could always come to his nice, cozy house and make time. So he said no.
Well, I'll just bring it to you.
He wanted to say no. You know, he didn't say no. Sometimes, silence does not imply consent. A lesson learned 3 days later. It was raining that day. Master was cataloging his big pig dig, his collection of pornography. A couple thousand VHSs, DVDs, and magazines given to him through his work. When he finally left the SLAS's idyllic setting, I wonder how many people found their own personal freak niche. When I ran into it, you could track down based on gender role, fetish, time period, actor, actress. There was a database catalog. And still, the worst thing to come through the door came in a large cardboard box with a boy in a blue poncho and dark hair, who seemed to just be going over the edge. The plush Fox Force collection consisted of 4 handmade fox stuffed animals. They were made from soft fur material and dressed up in uniforms. Little sort of, I guess the term would be chibi representations of the Force.
Adorable!
The Master's current squeeze said, as she picked up one of them. The words wouldn't come out of me to warn her.
What is in here? Some sort of voice thing? Like a Teddy Rex pin?
It was when the plush was flipped over that the Master saw the slight bulge, and the Velcro snaps. As you have guessed, these were fully functional. Plush foxes. He had figured out a way to secure the things in, and demonstrated, using a dildo, thank you, Sai, to show the full functionality of the device, as the Master and current mistress looked on in shock horror at the Tupperware presentation of Plush Fox masturbatory aids.
The fur is easy to clean, washer safe, and able to accept pretty vigorous thrusting. Then you just pull it out and, ta-da! If you want, I can, just leave one.
And it did not end there. Then came the postings. It began in earnest, in the geek community around the SLAS, at the coffee shops and the bookstore that sold RPG materials. You know the corkboards well, and sometimes you see that weird little posting that is so cryptic that it makes no sense in context. Looking for people to test a new product. Ages 18 to 65. Males preferred. Provided compensation for time. Serious inquiries only. No one knew what they were, but the curiosity probably brought them out, and the postings appeared pretty far and wide. You may have seen one. The one I got to see a few years back had a hand-drawn fox on the photocopy, upper right, on lime green paper. If you participated, congratulations! You found me out. Let me give you a description of the events. Blue had rented a small sort of shacky building with some of his filthy lucre for testing purposes. Into this glorified lean-to, he placed multiple boxes on some sort of adjustable pole. The plush foxes were secured into this torture apparatus and allowed to be ravaged to test for variables in length, stroke, etc. Master's friend, who allegedly attended such an event, described walking in on 2 sweaty fat men, pants around their ankles, proceeding to do what one does when presented with compensation, a lack of dignity, and a masturbation can shoved inside a teddy bear. Teddy bear, fox. The technical terms fox with me. Did they change out cans? Was there a reward? No foxing clue. The friend bolted upon walking into the Fox doll shack. A faculty member is said to have come across the site in full swing and led to the first of many medical hiatus for our dear friend Big Boy Blue. But not before this discovery. You see, there are plush foxes. And then there is Supreme Fox. This comes from someone who was involved in the first hiatus, as I had to hear about all of the crazy after starting the story. You see, there were prototypes. His room had one of those nets you see in nurseries, filled with torn-apart fox plush dolls, various other animal types, and then the crowning achievement. At some point, one may find the Supreme Fox. I have no idea whether the thing was destroyed. Gods, I hope it sits in a landfill, or is elsewhere. Blue had begun to collect fox pelts, and through months, years of sewing, careful work, and woodworks or plastics on a mannequin, had created himself a full-sized replica of his Fox Force lover. The thing was essentially a furred real doll, handcrafted, immaculately kept, with its own sets of brushes and fixatives to keep the fur in place, except for around the party places. Those were nappy, matted down, and covering a series of masturbatory aids. A mouth hole, ass, and a vagina were inserted, and thus was created a perfectly PF3 love doll. I don't know what PF3 stands for, so forgive me. I wish I could make it funnier or less creepy, but this man cared for this doll. He had made it a uniform, other clothes. They were appropriate nipples for a fox. And all of that matted hair. Should I go on with another story? Okay, hi. So, we're going to take a brief break and mention some of the nonsense going on in this story. Now, OP is hearing all of this secondhand, and theoretically, this is Big Boy Blue in his prime, his first year at college away from his parents. He's obviously in pain over the loss of his sister, the sister that he loved a little too much, kind of like Boone from Lost. And apparently, he was pretty good at writing. Good for him. Why did he have to write about this nonsense? Why did it have to be a rape fetish? Honestly, here's the thing. Is it doubtable that all of this stuff happened? Yes. At the same time, look at Chris Chan. If you took Chris Chan, gave him money, made it where his parents were well off, so he was well off, you can totally see him doing the same things as Big Boy Blue. But of course, Chris would actually make a bunch of Sonichu plush dolls, and he would love on those. And the giant love doll would instead be Amy Rosachu. Doubtable? Yes. Possible. That possibility level is too high for me to be comfortable. So let's go ahead and return to the story about more Big Boy Blue. Since you all seemed interested, this one occurs during the period of the Blue Hell, when I was forced into my friendship with Big Boy Blue, which, if you listen to the first story, occurs after Big Boy Blue's birthday celebration. Disclaimer: as I have stated, I am an enormous foxing man. I mean, I am a fat fox. Much bigger than Big Boy Blue, taller, but fox my lordosity. I work out now, lost quite a lot of weight, but I mean, I need some work, toot sweet. And I definitely have my moments of awkward. But when compared to an incestuous necrophile who keeps a real fur fox doll, I'm a foxing well-adjusted geek. I do not attempt to show myself in any special light here. I know who I am. A fat floop who is pretty damn smart and made it out of a shit situation to half-assedly make good. But I'm here to tell the tale of a Thorazine crusader and his short but disturbing descent into madness. So, as I have stated, our group was filled with drunks. We enjoyed a triple, a drop, and a whole bottle when the times called for it. I believe I had just made my way into one of my majors. Required a bit of an examination, proof that as a newbie I was willing to commit and worth working with without taking any courses. And so, this was a handle night. 1 3/4 liters of Mr. John Daniels, Missing Link, myself, and our big blue shadow along for the ride. We began the night playing drinking games with a few friends. Innocent flirting occurs as Blue sits in a corner, drinking some of my cola for mixing, and generally bringing down the vibe by several steps. Standard college hijinks ensues. We are treated to a game of truth or dare. I, like the sir I was with fiancés in my life, declined the ministrations of a girl I would later spend a year of relationship bliss with. We set off into the night, which has sprouted thick fog during our times in the dorms. And so it begins. During my days at the SLAS, fogs were common and brought out the fog runners. The fog, due to the unique geography and campus green space, led to a great game of tag between the runners and those who happened to be wandering the fog. Some played in the nude, some played in costumes. As a time of pretty lax enforcement of recreational drug use and alcohol control, it made for a complete foxing madhouse during fog nights. Blue hated the fog. Fog was his enemy, as there was a certain sick pleasure in tagging those who didn't play, and Blue Boy was a favorite target. I mean, the guy was known for his weirdness across the small campus, though not a lot of people knew the extent beyond the administration, myself, and those who were my friends having to see this shit. So it was with a gladdened heart and a slim hope that he would part with us as we came near his special dormitory. We marched into the fog and hear the first whoops and calls of the runners. We make it through the drunken haze to our second stop to pick up a few more friends, and it is then that Blue decides he has had enough.
I'm going to catch one of those foxing runners. I'm going to fox and kill them all.
No one comes to harm with the runners. I mean, if it was a pack of wild fog rapists, I could understand the hate. But those eyes, those foxing, creepy blue eyes. Drinks are mixed, camel packs filled with vodka for the runners who luck out and catch the caravan of drunks. And Blue sits in the corner, brooding. He begins to mumble, somewhat incoherently, about the runners, the fog, and his general hatred of everything that walks and crawls without a cerulean tinge. We attempt to get him involved in a few hands of asshole, listen to music, generally have a nice quiet boozy time before heading to the party. We get to the party, and he continues to brood. It is during this time that Mongrel Chuck decides to make his presence known to us in all of his glory. I knew Mongrel Chuck from classes. He called himself Mongrel due to his Heinz 57 style heritage, but it came together into a 6'5" ripped jock who enjoyed postmodern philosophy enough to throw away a D1 scholarship for us. He still played intramural, but the guy is probably the greatest bro geek I have met in my wanderings. He used to play Paladin in a game a few years back with us, and made me truly believe that Paladins are just frat boys with holy avengers. I digress. Mongrel Chuck has shown up to the party in his fog gear, mainly consisting of a banana hammock and war paint. You don't question the guy who can tear you limb from limb, and you let it slide. Seeing Blue, he promptly makes his round of hellos, slaps us heartily across the back, and rushes into the fog. What comes next is the breaking of the fatty land speed record, and the slow descent into rapiness of our wonderful Azure boy. Pick seemed appropriate bro for the section. Blue takes off like a rocket, the force of his sprint like a line of blue streaking across the party floor, out the door, into the fog. And there's me, Mr. Link, and the crew dumbfounded. We begin to leave, as our association with Blue is now well known. Because Fox my life, I'm his appointed only friend in the world, and hear the sounds of skin hitting skin, loud, in the fog, somewhere echoing. We find the scene of Blue standing over Mongrel Chuck. Apparently, he had decided to grab something to broadside the guy, then begin to beat at him with ineffectual blows. Mongrel Chuck is mostly stunned at being brought down by the likes of Big Boy Blue, and laughs it all off. But that face and those eyes don't go away. The group decides to beat a hasty retreat, but Blue is welcomed back to the party by Chuck, after a no hard feelings boys will be boys. As I said, the kid manipulates, and Chuck sort of took him on as a personal project at this point. But then there's the story about Chuck's girlfriend, and that's a lot to get sidetracked with. It is around 2 a.m. that we get the call from one of my friends in the fraternity hosting the party, and after I stopped laughing, I headed to the aftermath. A few things about Mongrel Chuck. The guy once accidentally screwed a friend's girlfriend of 2 weeks. He was not aware of it. The girl just decided that, Mongrel being the golden frat boy god he was, she needed some of that dick. He proceeded to allow himself to be beaten for the offense. He had been away on family business during the start, blah blah, didn't know. Then the two guys, with Chuck having a broken nose, set by a pre-med, a busted tooth, and 2 shiners, decided to go out for drinks. Chuck set the other guy up that night with 2 girls he had been pining over for 3 years. The friend and one of his 3-way buddies got married about 3 years ago. Happiest couple I've ever seen. She's a 9.5, and he looks like Seth Rogen. He moved up about 3 ranks for the offense, and still has a very active, enjoyable life. Yes, Chuck is a good-natured broheim who pays for his screw-ups with honor and giving better than he hurt. Honestly, yeah. Mongrel Chuck is honestly a paladin. That's pretty based. From his description, he reminds me of Henry Cavill. Or Plato, the famous wrestler philosopher. Blue has been called into the circle. The ultimate players who belong to the fraternity took him into the circle, their personal libertine love fest, due to the balls it took to try to take on Chuck. Now, they didn't know he was a freak, so they gave him some good-natured ribbing, and then brought him in. You've probably heard of a party like this. It's the party beyond the party, that place where the drinks are colder, the weed is stronger, and the girls are in various states of undress, enjoying the attention. The little sisters of the fraternity doing the servicing, as some want to do. The circle is a fun place to be. I spent my times there, and as the panda, I'm incredibly white and dressed in cheap black jerseys I got for $10 for 20. I spent my time doing stupid shit. Blue was invited in with open arms, assigned to a nice couch with the elder alumni, who treated him like a god. Want a drink? It's there. Want a girl? There. But he just kept sulking. The elders were not pleased. Being offered a young man's heaven and treating it like a bucket of shit? What the fox is wrong with you? So Blue plays along, and thus began Blue's one experience and the aftermath of recreational drugs and his first consensual non-animal sexual relations. 1 hit, 2 hit. Whose hit? Blue's hit. The kid is chiefing the pipe, a big hammer known as Meowner. He finally gets into the whole scene and proceeds to ask for more and more. They provide him with a drink, something sweet, so he gets the strong, near-tasteless Everclean punch, favored by the frat, over that swill beer. And then the girl. Chuck smiles and asks what he wants. As he cannot decide, he is presented with the options. The little sisters were not chosen for much beyond their qualities of beauty. Frats get away with misogyny, and I'm not going to argue over the patriarchy, man. But the girls of this particular year were quite fantastic, and they gave him a show, stripping, feeling the drinks and the weed in the heat of the room. And now he has player's choice among about a half dozen unoccupied girls.
Whoever can get me up gets it.
Now, that's a pretty ballsy move, but for sheer chutzpah, he gets applause. The girls proceed to come over, pull down his blue fleece, reach into his onesie. And Blue is foxing packing heat. We're talking baby arm and apple comparisons. The girls and the bros are amazed and begin to cheer them on. Lube is brought out, the jacking commences. One of the guys likens him to Ron Jeremy, and considering RJ's nickname and Blue's color choices, Ron the Hedgehog Jeremy, blue suit. Sonic, 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 Sonic! He's stripped bare, clothes piled up. He's getting the attention of the little sisters now, seemingly enjoying it, but it just won't get going. Sonic, Sonic, Sonic! One of the girls, let us call her Alice, is now thoroughly into it. Gets in like a soldier to the business, begins getting rough. And he promptly proceeds to begin enjoying the festivities. He's pulling hair, calling names, putting work in like every young man who has read too many Gorian fantasies, and creates stories about Rhino on Fox rape and gore porn. Alice is a soldier. Became good friends. She's a down for whatever sort, and kind of took a shine to young Blue when they first met, before the crazy really set in. She's enjoying the administrations of the other go-getter, and thus commences the moment of truth. Just as the magic is about to happen, the cries of Sonic start to quiet, as Blue is mumbling again, loudly.
Kill you. Kill all of you. Kill all of you.
And proceeds to unleash his bladder across Alice and her unsuspecting trooper friend. Oh my gosh. And OP doesn't make a clear distinction here, but everything he hears about what happened at the party after Big Boy Blue tackled Mongrel Chuck has been conveyed to him over the phone over the past few minutes. It was around there that I went down on my knees laughing in the room, phone cradled in between my shoulder and face, wheezing like I just ran a marathon. But wait, there's more! Pissing on girls may be tolerated in some fraternities, but it is frowned upon by those who have a certain rectitude. And the elders of the circle were not happy with this event. And so it fell upon Mongrel Chuck, savior of the Blue Menace, to provide yet another save. Now, one does not allow a man who just proceeded to provide a refreshing golden shower to leave without some sort of price paid. So Chuck marched Big Boy Blue out of the circle, through the back entrance, oddly enough used for pissing on the wall back there, and into the night without his clothes. The fog would keep him safe from the elders who wanted blood, and if he just headed in the right direction and walked off of path, he could make it back to his special dormitory, filled with the sickies and holding a standard 12 a.m. wellness curfew. Get in and hopefully dodge the worst of the shame. Chuck gave the jersey he changed into after the events in the fog. Pants wouldn't fit, and the jersey would cover most of the shameful bits. Wished him well, and gave me a call. And so, it is at 2:30 a.m. that a 3-man search party, me, Missing Link, and a random RA who heard the story and felt bad, to cover a couple square miles for a half-naked, blue-haired fox, to make sure he didn't die in the fog of hypothermia, or get the shit beaten out of him by hazing. The search began in earnest. Ever notice how shitty flashlights don't work in the fog? Well, if Blue died, or was harmed, I'm up a creek. No scholarship, and probably expelled for forcing him to imbibe booze, and provide him the ability to receive a handjob and blowjob. I mean, I would have had somehow sexually assaulted him with Alice's hands and mouth, and it would stick. Knowing how this school operates, yeah, probably. The RA, Missing Link, and myself first split the quadrangle, following the suggestions Mongrel Chuck had given. No path, cut through X and Y locations, probably be around point A, and being that our lucks coincide, Missing Link and myself converge on the correct spot. How do we know? Well, we hear the barking. The fox barking. The foxer is sitting curled into a ball in the middle of the lawn by a tree, shivering and barking like a foxing fox. Ugh. His bare ass is hanging out. He has also shat himself.
Never leave me again, Anon. You scared me, and those guys tried to rape me.
So, shit-stained, and accusing the guys who just gave him more than anyone since cruel fate has given. Awesome. We proceed to take him into his dormitory, oil the waters with the on-call RA, thankfully a friend of our RA companion, and throw Blue into the shower. Scrub-a-dub occurs. The blue boy is taken to his room, and explains he doesn't have any clothes. We enter the room, a little funky, but not nearly as bad as it would become, or fresh shit smell of before, and the chest of drawers has quite a lot of clothing. It is just not all blue. We get him into clothes, and he actually looks normal. I mean, nerdy as fox. The Star Wars shirt and cargo shorts give it away. I sit down on the bed and prop myself up as he goes into the good old bathroom Jack Shack. The standard moaning and greased fat man slapping sounds occur, and then Missing Link raises up what is in his hands. It is one of his fox plushies, with a masturbation sleeve still in it, and it has made a damp spot on the sheets from its placement. Missing Link is the one person other than Big Boy Blue to get a handful of blue boy cum, to the best of my knowledge, during our days together. Salute! After his enjoyment, he asks if he can have a cigarette, profusely apologizing for acting like an idiot. Well, we're in for a penny at this point, and the on-call is still talking to our companion. Fox it. And that is exactly what he tried outside. We get outside, light up our smoky treats, and Blue explains his own perceptions of the night. You see, he somehow got lost in the fog, and ended up at this frat hazing event, and because he was so fresh and soft, they decided to attack him and attempt to sodomize him. He began to describe his ordeal, being forced to drink and eat heroin, the beating, the horrible psychosexual trauma, being tied to a pole, and them trying to shove his own dick up his ass, and, after succeeding, making him, well, it gets worse. Short of shit being involved, It was the aristocrats. Of course, he somehow subdued Chuck again, got his jersey torn right off of him, and ran all the way home until we found him, magically, alive. Then, out of foxing nowhere, strutted a deer. It is not uncommon, especially at that point of the night in the area. The thing was probably fog-crazed and lost. I pointed it out to Mr. Link, and he chuckled, while Blue began to growl, deep, and started to strip off his clothes. For the second time in the night, the fatty land speed record is pressed, and the deer is so crazed that it doesn't know what the fox is going on. I see the deer when Big Boy Blue is at 20, then 15, then 10. And then it decides to get its shit together, realizing a wild, crazed man waving his cock is rushing toward its sweet, white-tailed asshole. The two run fast, and I mean as a lardo. I am amazed and know I am unable to make it at any speed, until I hear the crash of something hitting into the side of the steel temporary building, housing a couple of pieces of construction equipment, and the scream of pure animalistic something. We get to the site, and the poor foxing doe is a goner. Nude Blue Boy is standing over the doe, his dick in his hand, quickly beating his dick like the vig was on. He's at full mast, and proceeds to dump a load just to the side of the thrashing body of the broken-necked doe.
Whore, I'm the predator, prey.
My face when I see the scene. I get to, as the one who could do it, put the poor thing out of its misery. So the next day comes. Blue feigns ignorance of the event. Maintenance gets to clean up a doe carcass who got lost in the fog and spooked. And the frat is seeking out the blue-haired freak who pissed all over the circle. I have no idea how that ended up. But the frat house had some really nice furniture added. Alice started dating a buddy, and the other trooper promptly dropped out due to a medical condition. Meanwhile, Big Boy Blue attempted to push the issue of his sexual assault. That never came around, as Chuck came to speak to Blue, met his parents, and they sort of fell in love with the brosif, who seemed so happy to take care of their boy. Chuck did help Blue a bit, and I feel that without his influence, someone would have probably ended up being raped or murdered. The dude is a solid example of the good frat guy, and he deserves a foxing trophy from my skinflint alma mater for helping keep their little revenue stream in line. Missing Link developed a mild case of OCD for around a semester, and still has issues with sitting on a bed or being in a bedroom after getting a nice sticky load of lube and jism in the hand. And you know how I ended up. Been real, Anons. I will trade those stories for any that guy you have ever foxing heard or contemplated. Oh, dear. Let's go ahead and say the story is real. In that case, I do feel that Big Boy Blue actually has a bit of a point, that he was sexually assaulted. Granted, he lied about a lot of stuff, and he was partaking in the actions, but you gotta remember, Big Boy Blue is not all there mentally, and really, I feel the school is at fault for not taking care of the student. They intentionally shifted all of the blame, all of the responsibility onto OP, and I don't blame OP for leaving Big Boy Blue at that party. We are all responsible for our own actions. So Big Boy Blue did drink, did smoke weed, and went along with choosing a girl and having sex. And he made the choice to piss all over them. Big Boy Blue also made the choice to go ahead and chase down a deer, naked, jerk off, and come all over next to the deer. The dude is not sane, but he still made choices. Obviously, this is after the point that Big Boy Blue started to descend into madness a little bit. But the entire story is insane. Man, I gotta be real. How true would it be? For this one, dang, does it sound fake. For me, I just really enjoyed the stories. Granted, them being true makes them far more enjoyable. And the thing is, I've heard other stories that are just as crazy. As for deer, I've hit a lot of deer with cars. They're completely stupid. I even had one deer jump into my stopped vehicle. That was stupid. But this is just insane. It's crazy. Ugh. Man, we've covered a lot of ground today. Furry smut to love dolls, full-sized love dolls, complete with multiple nipples, Big Boy Blue getting drunk and stoned, and this was a stupid crazy party. Oh, plus we got to learn about Mongrel Chuck. I gotta make an NPC out of Mongrel Chuck. Sounds like a pretty cool guy. Thanks to Denner the Drake for lending his voice for that of Master of Perverts. Be sure to check his channel out. Let's hear a little bit more from the Master of Perverts.
All right, hear me out. So I think I actually have a case here. I was fired from my last bartending job because they caught me masturbating behind the counter. That's discrimination against people with porn addictions like me. I'm so tired of people who just appreciate the female body being discriminated against by these bigots. It's 2021 for Christ's sake. Bro, what the fuck are these lines you sent me?
So I'm going to leave it up to you guys. If you want me to delve into the third story, I'm willing to do so. Just let me know. I don't think it's as wild as the stories we've covered, but I don't know. I like to go into these recordings blind. Please leave me a like if you enjoyed the video, and that will do it for today. So until next time, hope you feel inspired.